that's the place where we were gathered. And that's usually where the meetings were held by leadership. And usually they had meals there. So we followed our respective unit chiefs to the location. And I do not know how many people actually went. And only on the day, during the ceremony, then I knew how many couples were supposed to get married.
Travaillez-vous?
At the time, did you work in a mobile unit? Did I understand you correctly when you said that you were breaking rocks? Were you a member of a mobile unit?
Yes, I was. I was a member of a mobile unit. We were required to break rocks and trapeze pagoda, up the mountain rather. There was nothing else that we could do there besides breaking rock. We were required to break 1 cubic meter of rock per day or two.
Est-ce que j'ai bien compris?
Did I understand your testimony correctly if we say that you were summoned and the same day at 6 p.m. the marriage ceremony took place? Did I correctly understand your testimony?
The unit chief called us from our work site around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and when we arrived there, we just sat there, and at around 6 or 7 o'clock at night, we were required to line up, and we were wondering what was happening, and we noticed that there were female youths as well, but we did not dare to ask them. We thought that we were sent for study session, and only when we were in a line, then the chief made the announcement.
Qu'est-ce que le chef?
What did the chief or leader say at that time when you were already lined up? Do you remember what he said to you?
Yes, I still remember it very well, and I remember it until I die, because that was the point that caused me the most pain. They made the announcement that the population of Cambodia is not that great, and for us, male and female youths, we strive to work best, and for that reason, UNCA required us to get married to increase the population. That's why we knew that that was the day that we were forced to get married. And as I said, I suspected that that was the day because I heard people in the village talking about the marriage celebration that day. But I did not know who would be the couples. And that rumor was in February, and the marriage day itself was in August.
Vous souvenez-vous?
Do you remember the number of couples that were married that day? Or if you don't remember the exact number, can you give us an idea? An idea of the number of couples?
I can give you the precise number. As I said, I recall the event very clearly and I cannot forget it. There were 107 couples altogether, and there were 80 couples who were 17 April people, and I was the 7th couple in the row. I remember that vividly.
Connaissiez-vous votre épouse?
Did you know your spouse? before meeting her on the day of the marriage? You explained that you met her shortly before the beginning of the ceremony. Did you know this person beforehand?
I knew her because we were in the mobile units. Sometimes we met while we were working. She was an orphan. She did not have any parents or siblings. And the condition was the same for me. I was orphan. I did not have parents or siblings. Although we knew each other, we never spoke to one another except on that day. That day, I decided to talk to her, although I did not know that that was the day of the marriage, except after we were lined up and we were told that that was the marriage day.
Was the chief the one who presided over the marriage ceremony? Was that the person who designated that this would be your spouse? And can you tell me how and who decided who would marry whom on that day?
At that time, there was no such arrangement that this man had to marry this woman. No, we were not told about that. We were in a line and the women were in a separate line. Then they play a game similar to hide and seek. They actually switch off the light and that we had to feel a woman in another on another line, and I suspected that that's what's going to happen. That's why I spoke to the woman and that I asked her to put a scarf on her head and that I had to wear a scarf around my neck. So after I petted the woman, of course it was not completely dark, but I could feel her, and then I got hold of her hand and she got hold of mine.
Did you have to take some kind of a vow or pronounce something during this ceremony?
We had to make a resolution. There were 2 base people and 4 17 April people. It means that there were 6 couples, and since I was the next couple, I was called to make the resolution. That's why I recall it vividly that I was the 7th couple. I do not recall the words that they spoke during the resolution, but for me, I had to follow them in order to survive, so that they had the trust in us, and that they trust that we loved one another, and that we had to follow Anka. We had gratitude for Anka who organized the marriage for us, and that we would become husband and wife and produce children as required by Anka. That's the resolution that I made. Then they clapped their hands.
At the time, on the day of the marriage, did you feel that you had the opportunity to refuse to get married?
No, I could not refuse. That was the time that we had to follow them. Previously, I heard about the arranged marriage in late 76 or early 77, and several of those couples were taken away and killed under the pretext of sending them for study sessions. And I had to find a woman and pretended to be husband and wife, although I did not have a feeling for that woman at all. And what I did was to survive. And that woman understood me that I was in that fashion, and that's why she agreed to our arrangement.
Est-ce que
Did anyone of the persons present that day for the marriage ceremony refuse to get married on that day? You said that there were 107 couples. Among these people, were there any who refused to get married?
There was none of the 107 couples who refused. However, we could see that some people shed their tears quietly, especially the women. As for men, some of them also wept, although they did not dare to speak out. Most of the women shed their tears. I did not know about their personal feeling, but that's what I observed. But nobody dared to make any verbal refusal to the arrangement.
Et vous, quels étaient vos sentiments?
And you, what were your feelings on that day, at that time, during the ceremony? What was your mood?
I did not feel anything because, as I said, I had spoken to her. We made our arrangement that she had to wear a scarf on her head and that I had to wear a scarf on around my neck so that we would find one another, and that in the end I achieved my objective.
Pouvez-vous décrire?
Could you describe the marriage ceremony and tell us if that ceremony was different from the marriages that you were able to attend before Democratic Kampuchea or after Democratic Kampuchea? Were people dressed in the same way? Was there music? Were there flowers? Can you explain to us a little bit how the ceremony was organized?
That the wedding ceremony was not organized according to the Khmer tradition at all. That wedding ceremony was held according to Angkar's plan. We were forced. There was nothing played over a loudspeaker. In fact, there was a small loudspeaker which was used to relay instructions to the people who had to marry.
Et lorsque vous parlez,
And when you talked about the small loudspeaker and the instructions, are you talking about what you spoke of earlier? That is to say, the orders that were given to you to pledge allegiance to Angkar and to produce children for Angkar. Is that what you're talking about, these instructions?
They spoke about producing children for Angkar, having respect for Angkar, and anybody who betrayed Angkar would be smashed. And that year we did not follow Angkar's instructions, we would be smashed. So the marriage was not organized according to the tradition. We were forced to get married.
vous avez évoqué tout à l'heure la
A while ago, you spoke of the presence of the heads of the unit and the heads of the commune during the marriage ceremony. Who presided over the ceremony? If there was someone presiding over the ceremony, who was it?
I do not know who presided over the ceremony. The person was in senior leadership. I only call him Comrade that is uncle. But I did not know of his real position. But I saw the commune chief came together with unit chiefs. And the unit chief of the woman that I married to was also in charge of the 17 April people. And there were those chiefs who came in groups. They dressed in nice colors, clothing. But for us, we wore black clothes. Some were torn and some were stained with mud as we came from the field. And the scarf that I wore was old and unwashed. So you could imagine that we were forced, we were compelled to get married.
Que pouvez-vous nous...
What can you tell us about the person whom you married? I think you gave the name Rota earlier. We've understood that she was in the mobile unit with you, and if I understood you correctly, you just said that she was a unit chief. What can you tell the court about this person? Who was she, and where did she come from?
I did not know where the person came from, but the person was from a nearby village. It was in the same commune. That is from Do village. I was in J village. However, we belong to the same commune. That is Dong commune. But I did not know where the person originally came from. As for the role of the unit chief or the female, the unit was based in another location, while we, the male unit, was based at the mountain to break rocks. And we were allowed to visit the village every 10 days. That's when we met one another.
Quel âge avait votre...
How old was your wife? Did you have the same age, or was there an age difference between you?
I did not know how old she was at the time. She is 50-something by now, and I am 70-something by now. So I was older than her. She was around 20-something, while I was 30-something during 1977.
Je vous remercie. Pouvez...
Thank you. Can you explain to the court what happened the first night after the marriage ceremony?
After the conclusion, we were instructed to return to our respective houses, and for those who did not have houses, they returned to their mobile unit. For me, I went to my other in-law's house. That is, the house belongs to my deceased mother, so I returned to that house. However, the house at the time was not built high off the ground. Probably it was about 1 meter high off the ground. And when we went onto the house at around 10 or 11 o'clock at night, when I was chit-chatting with my elder-in-law and my wife, we looked under the house and we saw movement of shadows, although we did not know who they were. However, in the morning, we saw mass of people crawling under the house. And then we knew immediately that they came to spy on us, because while we were unmarried, they crawled under the house to listen whether we were agents of CIA or KGB. And after we got married, they did the same, but this time they wanted to make sure whether we consummate the marriage or not.
Et pouvez-vous dire à la Cour si le mariage...
And can you tell the chamber if the marriage with Rota was consummated at least that first night, and then we'll see about later?
No, we did not consummate the marriage. And it continued for several weeks that we were taken for study sessions. We were questioned whether we had consummated the marriage, and we said yes, we had. And then they said no. They did not believe me because I was a transgender, and how could I sleep with my wife? And I told them, if not, then you could have a look at my genital. But they did not do that. As for my wife, she was in a female unit. She was also grilled on that point whether she consummated the marriage. And she said, of course, yes. So we were questioned on both sides, and they warned if I did not consummate, and if they find out, then we would be smashed. But I told them that we did. We were threatened repeatedly until we decided to consummate the marriage. One day, the village chief who liked me, who considered me as his relative, gave me some wine. Then I drank the wine with my wife together, and we got drunk. And then I said that if we do not consummate the marriage today, then one day they would find out and we would be killed, and that we run out of lives. And she said that we should do anything in order to survive. And then, under the effect of the alcohol, my mood changed. And that's how I consummated the marriage.
Était-ce la première fois que vous avez...
Was that the first time that you had had such relations with a woman?
Throughout my life, that was the only time that I had sexual intercourse. So far, that was the only time. I am 70 years old something, and that was the only time that I had a sexual intercourse. And I swear to the chamber that that is the truth.
Pouvez-vous expliquer à la Cour...
Can you explain to the chamber what was the frequency with which you saw your spouse once the marriage had been pronounced? Did you live together? Did you meet each other at certain times of the week or the month? How frequently did you see your spouse? Can you explain to us a little bit how the marriage between you and Rota continued from day to day?
after the marriage, and after I consummated the marriage for one time after I got drunk, we were separated, and maybe they found out that we had intercourse with one another after we got drunk. Probably they spied on us that night, and we did not pay attention to that. They knew that we slept with one another, and then they sent me to live in Tuk in Tapej mountain to break rock. And every 10 days, we were allowed to meet each other, but I did not have any sex with her because I became so tired after I walked from the work site, and I never even had a feeling about sex, and I did not even notice that my wife became pregnant. And at 6 o'clock in the evening, I said goodbye to her, and I returned to the work site. And of course, my wife understood that. She could see through my poor physical condition that my kneecaps were as big as my head. And how could somebody have any feeling about sex? We were trying to survive. My wife and I, we were the only person in our family line. Because by 1979, we both were trying to find any remaining relatives everywhere, but we failed. Even today, I am living just for the sake of being alive. In fact, I should have been, half of my body should have been paralyzed from hypertension some time ago. And I like to express all the pains that I have before this chamber.
You said that your wife became pregnant. So did she deliver? And if yes, can you tell the court what happened to the child? Did you see your child? What can you tell us about the child?
President, Madam Civil Party, please wait until the tip of the microphone turns red. I was not aware that my wife was pregnant until she delivered, but my in-law came to tell me that my wife delivered a daughter, and the baby, the female baby, was beautiful. I did not have time to go and visit her because I was required to break the rock. I really wanted to go home to see the face of my child, but I could not walk.
Did you ever think about separating from Rota? And were there couples that would break apart back then when they were not satisfied with their marriage?
Yes, there were some couples which got separated. They were taken away for study session and they disappeared. They never returned back to the village. They were said that they were taken away to be educated, but they never returned. Only about 10% of those who married on the same day with me survived. Occasionally, I met one of them.
Donc, si je comprends.
So, if I understood your testimony properly, a certain number of people who were married, who got married at the same time as you during that ceremony in August 1977, disappeared because they tried to separate from their spouses after the wedding ceremony. Do I understand your testimony properly?
People had the right to get divorced only in 1979, but during the Khmer Rouge regime, they did not have the right to get divorced. They simply disappeared because they were required to go for study session.
Vous nous avez
You spoke to us about the daughter you had with young Rota. Do you remember more or less when she was born? And have you received any news from her since?
Since the baby was born until nowadays, I have never received any news about her. Since the collapse of the regime in 1979 until now, I have never received any news about her.
Avez-vous des nouvelles?
Do you have any news from young Rota, your wife?
For my wife, I don't know whether she's still alive. And if she's still alive, I don't know where she lives. I also try to search for my daughter and my wife, but I could not find them. Since the 1980 until now, I tried to search for them, but I could not find them. Although I am a transgender, but I have sympathetic feeling toward them and try to locate them, but I could not find them.
Et ma dernière question.
And my last question, civil party, when you think about this marriage, about those events, what do you feel with the 40 years distance between the ceremony of August 77 and today? Can you share with the chamber what you feel when you think about those events?
As I said a little while earlier, that although I was a transgender, I had a child like other people, and it was tragic that we got separated from each other. It was painful for me. Although I did not love women, I still feel sympathy toward my child. When we were re-educated together, I felt frightened. I tried hard to find them, but I cannot. Since my health was good, until now my health was poor, I have always thought about them.
Je vous remercie, Madame la
Thank you, Civil Party. Thank you, Mr. President. I have no further questions.
President, thank you, Madam Lawyer. Now I give the floor to the co-prosecutor.
Good afternoon, Madam Witness. Thank you very much for coming I have a few questions. I hope that you can help us to better understand the situation of what happened so long ago at a time that was so different than today. So you mentioned that there were over 100 couples involved in the ceremony where you got married, so over 200 individuals. Can you tell us the age range, the best you could estimate, how old or how young these men, women, boys or girls were?
Based on my knowledge and observation, their age were nearly equal. I was a bit older than my wife. Many of them were young, but not too young. So they were roughly between 20 and 30s for the men.
Okay, thank you. And you described a process where there were two lines. You said it was, is it correct that it was evening? The sun had gone down, is that correct? Or was it still dusk?
Yeah, it was the time when the sun set. We were required to stand up. We could not stand down. If we want to sit down, we have to put our flip-flop beneath us. But we were asked to stand up in line.
And then you described a process, if I understood correctly, where the two lines were asked to walk towards each other and grab someone from the other line, in other words, a man and a woman, to touch each other. Is that correct? To pair off?
When we were required to stand in lines, and then they started to turn off the electricity. And when the electricity was off, they required us to touch each other. They did not tell us to hug each other, but simply to touch to find our partner.
Now, at some point, did the lights go back on?
After we identified our partner and then the electricity came back, I felt satisfied because I was able to find my own partner, but some other couples were not. Some of them wept, including men and women. They kept weeping.
Was there any possibility for someone to say, no, my boyfriend, my girlfriend is this other person, I want to change the arrangement?
We even did not dare to cough. We did not dare to talk, because if we talk, we would be disappeared. So we had to accept, but with the expression of weeping, tears coming down.
You indicated that there were people in bright colored clothing, better clothing than the clothing you workers from the mobile brigade were wearing. Were any of those people, to your knowledge, from outside of your commune? Were there any leaders at a higher level, as far as you could tell, present at the ceremony?
Talking about clothes, as I told you earlier, we wore the clothes from the paddy fields. Our clothes was dirty, and as for my clothes, it was also dirty because I just came back from breaking the rock, and even the scarf was smelly. I saw the district chief, rather the commune chief and the deputy commune chief, but I did not know their names.
Do you, in any of your experiences during the regime, did you ever see the visit of people at a higher level, from a zone leader or someone from the center?
I saw them when I joined the making of the Tumnup Angkor Borai. I saw Tamok and Tasaum. I knew them. I also saw Tachan. I was familiar with these three people. But for other leaders, for example Pol Pot, I never saw them. I saw only Tamok, Tasaum, and Tachan.
Where did you see Tamok?
The dam was called the historic dam. It's from Angkor Borai through to Trotdait, and they came to inspect the dam. I saw them while I was carrying the earth. I did not have much time to look at them because I had to carry earth back and forth.
Now you mentioned, going back to the forced marriage, you mentioned that before your marriage, you had heard of these arranged marriages taking place. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Had you ever witnessed a forced marriage or an arranged marriage ceremony previously?
When I was at Tralat commune of Triang district, Takao province, I also witnessed the marriage of handicapped people from the military. They had leg and hand handicaps. They got married to the old base people, and they had tables and chairs for the wedding. It's different from the wedding of the 17th April people. In my wedding ceremony, there were 107 couples, and among those, 80 couples were the 17th April people. Because I was short, I stood at the front, and my couple was assigned as the 7th couples.
The marriage of the handicapped people that you witnessed, and I believe you said soldiers, can you tell us, was that handicapped marrying non-handicapped, or was it handicapped marrying each other?
អត់មានរៀបការ
They did not get married to handicapped women. They got married to the women who were considered as loyal to the party. The woman was at the rare battle. They were not disabled. They were chiefs of cooperatives. They were medics at the cooperatives. When the soldiers with disabilities sent back from the battlefields, they got married to those women, and those women, even though they were the 18 March people, they did not dare to refuse.
Do you know who chose these women? Did the women have a choice, if you know, in that ceremony? Or was it again, were they told to marry various handicapped soldiers?
I saw the disabled soldiers coming to get married. It was not forced. The women were asked to get married to those disabled soldiers, and no one of them dared to refuse. But it was just a smaller numbers of couples. It's different from the 17 April people's wedding. I did not hear the words of threat or intimidation during the wedding of the disabled soldiers with the based women. It's different from the wedding of the 17 April people.
Okay, I'll come back in a moment to why people didn't refuse. That's very important. But first, let me ask you, do you know of the experiences of other transgender persons and that you knew before the April 1975, and whether they were forced to get married during the DK regime?
When I was at my native homeland in 1975 and 76, there were cases of forced marriage, but the transgender people would refuse even though they had to commit suicide. They would commit suicide by drinking the poisonous substance. They refused to get married. But because I had an old mother, and after my mother died, I felt that I was lonely in this world.
Of the transgender persons that you knew before the fall of Phnom Penh in April 1975, can you tell us if you know, did most of them survive? Did half of them survive? What percentage of them, in your experience, those you knew, survived the regime?
All my friends who sang to get me in the bars disappeared, including Dai, Paula, Rotha, Sarai, all gone. They were shot at our rent house. Only Sina and I survived. But later on, I got separated from her when we were relocated to different villages. As for other friends of mine died at the stadium, they were shot dead there, and I never met any one of them again.
Okay, thank you. And what about brothers and sisters, siblings of yours? Can you first tell us how many you had at the start of the regime in April 1975, and tell us how many, if you know if any were forced to be married, or if any died during the regime?
15 of my family members, including my parents, all gone. No one survived. All of them were killed. I witnessed with my own eye 2 of them who were tied up. They were sent away. They were sent away to study. Only I survived until now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Witness. Now, I'm coming back to some important questions when you're ready. Let me just pause for a moment. You just let me know. Take your time. Let me know if you'd like to continue now, or if you really don't feel like you can, perhaps we can ask to adjourn now. We only have a few minutes left.
It's okay, now you can continue your questions.
Okay, thank you very much. You mentioned in talking about the ceremony that you were told that Angkar wants to increase the population. And I'm interested in you explaining to us at that time what was told to you about who was Angkar.
I did not know who they were. Everyone who appeared said they were Angkar. So everyone were Angkar, including the chief of the commune, the chief of the unit. So I could not identify who was really the Angkar, because everyone who was in authority were called Angkar.
Did you hear people talk about the party?
My apology that I cannot give any answer about the party, Communist Party. I was simply a 17 April people who were sent to reside with the other 17 people, April people.
Thank you very much. That's fine. All we want is what you do know. If you don't know, that's fine. But there's something important I'd like you to explain, because we weren't there, and I think it's a very different place that you were in 40 years ago. When you say you could not refuse, that all those 107 couples, no one said no, because you said you were afraid you'd be taken away and be killed. Why? What was it? What had you seen? What was it like that made people feel that if the Angkar suggested they get married, that they had to do that they had no choice?
All of them were in a tense situation. They were psychologically tense, but they did not dare to speak because their relatives and parents would educate them to grow the so-called go tree or dam tree. So, for example, my case, when I was assigned to give the food to the pigs, I simply followed the order. I did not dare to speak out because we were the 17 April people, and they would accused us of being members of CIA or KGB, but we had to live with it. We did not dare to speak out or protest. And we must make sure that we would not steal anything, because if they saw us stealing things, we would be accused of being thieves. But thief was a less crime than the image of being CIA member or KGB or intellectuals.
In your experience, maybe this will be the last question. In your experience, so we understand, what did people do? What kind of evidence did they rely on to accuse people of being KGB or CIA? Who could be accused of that, and for what reason?
They had no concrete evidence to accuse us. If they wish for a person to die, they simply say that person was a KGB agent. And if they really want a person to die, they would accuse that person of being a CIA or KGB member, or even an intellectual person, although that person may not be able to read and write. So everything was on the tip of their mouths, and if we want to survive, we had to be quiet. President, thank you, co-prosecutor. It is now time for the adjournment. The chamber will resume its hearing tomorrow, 24 August 2016 at 9 o'clock. Madam Suthivi, the hearing of your testimony has not yet concluded. You are therefore invited to come back tomorrow at 9 a.m. The hearing tomorrow, the chamber will continue to hear the testimony of Madam Suthivi, and we will hear the testimony of 2T-CCP 264. Security personnel are instructed to bring Khieu Samphan and Nuon Chea back to the detention facility and have them returned to the courtroom tomorrow morning before 9 a.m. The court is now adjourned.